So this webinar today is about finding out if your startup qualifies for the SBIR. And we're doing a lot of webinars regarding the changing landscape in non-dilutive funding right now of the new administration, the new topics, alignment, new agencies new programs within the agencies. And a question that we get very often is, and it's also part of when we onboard companies to our platform is, are they even qualifying for SBRs? And we see there is a lot of value in those sales communications and sales conversations that we have when companies want to onboard, because we always ask them a few things, a few questions, and then that way we find out if companies are really eligible for the program, so they're not wasting time and money on something that will not get them the results that they expect. And that webinar is basically what we look at, and also what reviewers will look at when they see startups and considering them or considering their proposals. And yeah, this is about this webinar today. And I'll just do a brief intro on who we are. Scout, what we do is we help companies streamline the entire grant writing process, from finding the opportunities to creating custom applications. And with Scout, what we do is we have one platform that is built built by grant writers and engineers together in a collaboration. That means the entire platform is based on grant writers' inputs and feedback, and our language models are customized to SBIRs. So when we build applications in there, it's pretty much a grant writer's tone and grant writer's voice and the grant writer's experience going through the application, building the applications, etc. And what Scout does is for now is the matching and the proposal writing and the application development. But then also you can plug in expert grant writers, and soon there will be a platform to manage the compliance of the grants. So the idea is to really make it easier for companies to find opportunities and then submit opportunities. And everybody who has done that before knows how stressful this can be in terms of hours, and how how this world is somehow for startups, but it's not made for startups. And with all different applications and supporting docs that you have, we have built Scout to basically help. We built Scout based on that pain point and expectations. And many of us have been grant writers in the past, and that is where all that came from. And when we do onboard companies, we always ask them, or we always try to find out if they are qualifying, if they're qualifying for the SBIR program. So some companies do see, okay, there's a lot of non-dilutive grant money out there, but they're not able to to really get more information on what kind of grant money it is, what are the characteristics, and who issues that money. So this webinar is also a little bit about the general SBIR program. When we talk about non-dilutive grant funding, I would say a 60 to 70% of grants generally comes back to the SBIR STTRs. That program is a federal program. It's mandated by Congress every year. It's surprisingly backed by both parties. The differences are, or the questions are always topic alignment to the current administration, but it has been backed by both parties, and it's the single largest source of grant funding related to R&D projects. So there's $4.5 billion every year, and it's been given to federal agencies like the NIH, the National Science Foundation, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, and they all share that pot of money, and then they invest it into startups that help the agencies get to their research goals, because all of their agencies, they have research goals, and they have to subcontract those out to startups through grant programs. And that's how the grant money and the grant mechanism works. with the SBIR program. It's, to my knowledge, the biggest grant funding program in the world. It's $4.5 billion a year, so that is really, really a lot. It's equity free, and it's very competitive. So companies have to be a fit, and they have to be really qualifying for that program. And we see a lot of, success happens not only with the proposals. You have to have a good proposal, you have to have a good project, but you really need to make sure you're a fit. And many companies that apply to the program, in my opinion, are not a fit. And our belief is, if we can help companies already, either we discourage them or encourage them to submit a proposal, then that should already, raise the success chances. And startups usually use that program as a springboard. It's not only, well, some companies might only use SBIRs as a funding mechanism, but many companies combine it with VC money. And the idea of those programs is also to build first relationships with agencies. So, for example, if the Department of Defense invests into your company through that grant program, then there might be a potential end user for your product. So that is the idea of the SBIR program. It's 100% non-dilutive. You don't have to return it. You don't have to dilute any equity. And we have talked about the budget already. That's the middle stage here. And then the bottom stage, you see it's a phased approach. That means the money is usually spent, or the grant money is usually issued in two stages. One is the phase 1 stage, and the second is the phase 2 stage. The phase 1 is a small concept that and you basically demonstrate that if they give you more money, that you are able to to really develop what you were proposing to develop. And a phase 1 is more of a de-risk, or we can consider a de-risk of a phase 2 project. So a phase 1 is small scale, small feasibility concept, and then phase 2 is prototype generation and building a real first product. And yes, so competition is fierce, with less than 7% average success rates. But just by, finding out and making sure that you're really a company that is actually supposed to apply to this program, you can really increase the chances. And then if you're able to, if you manage to get a good proposal out there, then you also increase your chances. And so the 7% should not discourage you, because there's a lot of companies that apply to this program that may be a fit, but their project is not a fit. And then there's some companies that might not even be a fit because of the kind of industry they're in. So we're gonna talk about that real quick. Just a few more basics on the program. You see, those are funding priorities. I took that from the NSF agency, but those are actually funding topics, and that's basically what they're prioritizing throughout this year and throughout all different agencies. So it's a lot of AI, advanced manufacturing, biological, biomedical, chemical, medical devices, nanotechnology, robotics, and a lot of dual use, digital health for defense, or not, augmented reality, VR, space, semiconductors, learning, education. So that's what they are looking at. Those are the kind of projects that have an impact, and a broader impact, not only for that specific company, but also, generally having a broader impact, like educational projects, edtech. And those are kind of the funding priorities for this year. And yeah, and then we have two differences in the program. The SBIR is also, it's known for SBIR STTR, but SBIR is the most common version of it, which is the small business presents an opportunity, a project, and then develops that. And an STTR is a small business and a research institution, which must be a nonprofit. So any university, any academic university with research facilities would be qualifying as a research partner. That means, as an STTR, they come together and build together, or develop the project together. And then the idea is that technology can also transition from the university to a company within the STTR program. And I would say we are getting maybe 80-20 of companies to work with. So most companies are doing SBRs. They involve research partners, but to a smaller extent. So an SBR is fine for them. An STTR is when the nonprofit, the research partner, is having a more active role in the project. But it's the same structure, same money, phase 1 and phase 2, and follows all the same requirements. Differentiators here are research partner are not required with the SBR, but with the STTRs they are. And there's some allocation requirements. So in an SBIR, 70% of the work must be done by the company. And at the STTR, there's a minimum of 30% that needs to be done by the research institution. And that's actually that's the most important differentiator. And then the head of the grant, which is very often a technical role in the company that is applying, must be employed at the business at the time of award. So you don't have to be employed by the time you write the grant, but when you get awarded, then this must be a primary employment for the head, for the project manager. And at an STTR, that project manager could technically be employed at the university as well. Those are mostly the differences. Now that we know about the SBR, so how do we find out if a startup qualifies? So we have generally, and that's the initial part. We have eligibility criteria. So not all companies can participate in the program. They have to be a US small business. That means they have to be US based, and they have to be registered for profit, and they have to be majority owned, and that's the second point. They have to be majority owned by US individuals or permanent residents, green card holders, or other US companies that qualify. You have to have less than 500 employees, and the work has to be performed internally. That's the difference between the SBIR and the STTR. In the SBIR, the company needs to do this, needs to be involved at least at 70%. If you can't do all the work internally, you need a research partner to do this with you, then the STTR is the answer for that. Those are the 4 criteria. So when we see a company, when we onboard a company, we typically ask them, okay, you're a US-based business, are you for profit? How does a shareholder structure look like? Do you have how many investors do you have on board? Are your investors American? Are they foreign investors? And then most companies have a blend. And then we just look at the total percentage of US ownership in the company. If it's over 50%, then they are eligible. They have fewer than 500 employees, and we also ask them, of course, where the work will take place. Is it taking place in your company, or are you looking to subcontract? And those are the questions that we ask. But then this is a little bit more, those are more the real questions later on. So as you see, the first question here is, are you US-based for profit, fewer than 500 employees? Okay, we have that scratched off. But now the question is, for example, what do you want to present? It has to be an innovation, right? So do you own the innovation? Is it, do you have the ownership on that? Or are you inventing it? Or are you just reselling it? Are you upgrading existing technology? So this is what we look at. Is your work based on a real technical risk? If it is not, then it's not SBIR eligible. So the SBIR program is really to help companies overcome that risk and make sure that they are really funding risk or high risk companies only. Why? Because traditional investors wouldn't invest into those companies at that time, at that stage. So the clue here is my company in a stage where I could accept SBIR money to de-risk further? So once my grant is done, I'm ready, and as much as de-risk that investors would come in. And that is the idea of the SBIR. And then, do you have the right team and facilities, right? So, for example, if you're proposing a medical device, then where do you build that? Do you have the expertise in-house, et cetera, et cetera? So those are the kind of things that are important. There's many companies applying for an SBIR, and they should apply for an STTR, for example. So that's also what we look at. And then, is your idea more than just a product upgrade or a service offering? And that's really important. So an SBIR program does not typically fund apps or platforms unless there's something really novel behind it. I'm not talking about the concept or the application itself, but about the technology behind it. Really novel algorithms, new AI models, maybe hardware behind it. So it's really not funding traditional product development, but really more engineering and scientific advancements. And that is a big knockout criteria for many companies. So if we were to build a platform, well, actually, you know what? I have an example. I brought an example to this. Yeah, actually, it's already here. So, I made up this company. I hope that company doesn't exist. It's Helix Sense. It is a company that has two projects, and one is a good fit and one is not a good fit. And that is really that should, I think that gives you a great representation of what the SBIR is looking for. So the company could be perfect for an SBIR, but the project might not be. So project A is a mobile app. They want to develop a mobile app that helps AR teams, HR teams track employee wellness, and then also notifies them about hydration, posture, etc. Beside the fact that I wouldn't want to be getting notifications all the time about it, is not a good fit because it is primarily primarily just a software UI UX project. It's more about the design. There's no new signs because we already know how to send push notifications, etc., etc. It could be built using off-the-shelf tools, and there's no clear technical risk or R&D component in there. It's just straightforward product development, and that's not what they're looking for. But for example, Project B, same company, develop a we're developing a sensor fusion algorithm that uses thermal imaging and air quality data to detect early signs of heat stress in industrial workers with 85% predictive accuracy. So that is perfect, right? It is it involves novel machine learning models. It's a high-tech risk, and there's measurable R&D milestone, and the measurable here is the 85% of accuracy, and it could lead to new IP. And that's important. For example, the first one might not really lead to IP. The good fit, the project B does. And it requires experimentation, testing, and validation. So that is a big difference of a good or a good example of a good and not a good project. And key differentiator is that the good fit is rooted in discovery, and there's a lot of technical uncertainty, and it's generating new knowledge and technology. And that's exactly what the SBR is actually looking for. And that's also what we ask companies when we onboard them. We want to make sure that the core team for that particular project is a technical team, that the R&D can be done in-house. And that doesn't mean you have to have that staff at the time of applying. But when you get awarded, you get awarded because you have demonstrated a personal section. You have had written about or presented them a personal section that includes all those profiles that you will hire when you have the grant. So once you hire them, they're in-house. Can you do this in-house? Then if you have the team for that, then it's perfect. Is the principal investigator, the head of the grant, even employed at the company? They have to be employed at the company. Also at time of the award. And then is there expertise in the leadership team, in the technical team? Is there even expertise on that? Or is it, for example, we have machine learning projects, but the team is actually our medical doctors. So there's no relation between those. So is there expertise there? I'm saying this because I had a project with it was a machine learning project, and the PI was a medical doctor, but he happens to be an absolute expert in AI and machine learning, and he had publications, etc. So that would qualify, but you have to demonstrate that. And then does the company have the facilities and tools to execute that? If you don't have it, you have to have a plan at least. You don't have to have the facilities secured at the moment when you submit a proposal, but you have to have a plan, and you're basically telling them what facilities you will be using. So you have to have a plan there. if you're getting a grant and you're looking to outsource it to software development companies, subcontractors, that's not a great fit. If it's a small startup, that's a great fit. If it's a small startup with just one person that is not technical, it's not a good fit. So that PI always has to be um, either has to have a technical background or they have to have that particular experience, a really dedicated experience, work experience in this case. And that's the idea. So that's what we look at. And if all of this is a go, then you do have, well, you actually a really good fit for the SBIR program. And you see some of them is just preparing well because not everything is, you don't have to have everything in place. You don't have to have the team in place. You don't have to have the facilities. But you want to prepare for that. And when you build the grant proposal and you build the plan, you want to have all those questions answered. And that's how you de-risk it for the reviewers. And here are a few examples of recent grants. Those here have been awarded by the National Science Foundation. I'll have another example by the Department of Defense, and we'll be sharing that presentation as well with you later. But those are, examples of kind of companies that were awarded, and just to browse through. And then there's another agency inside the SBIR program, pretty big. It's actually the biggest. It's accounts for almost 50% of all the SBIR money. It goes to the Department of Defense. Department of Defense is a very huge drive of innovation, and they like to invest into a lot of dual use technologies, not necessarily military applications, but also civil applications, not necessarily only defense, right? And they fund a lot of healthcare. They fund a lot of early stage research, a lot of medical projects. They also fund anything else that you have seen in the first slides there, from AI to all kinds of aerospace, etc. And that's what they do. They also fund in a two-stage program, 250,000 on average on a first stage, and then 1.2 million on a second stage. The cool part about this, there is follow-on contracts. So once you have done and once your R&D is done and you have developed your product and you're ready to commercialize, then they might be your first client even. So that's why DoD is very interested, or a very interesting agency to send out a proposal to. And here are 3 awards of companies that they have awarded. Obviously, there's awards coming out every day, but it's just an example on what kind of companies they fund. And those here, the first is first one, advanced AI for autonomous navigation. Yeah, that could be a DoD project, but that could be easily a National Science Foundation project. The second one, portable energy solutions, could be a Department of Energy or National Science Foundation. So you see there's a lot of overlap between the different agencies in the SBIR program. And it happens to, DoD happens to fund those projects too. And the other one is a cybersecurity project, which is pretty big at Department of Defense. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's the other agencies here: NIH, Department of Energy, NASA, Department of Homeland Security. They all participate in the SBIR program, and based on their size, they do get different budgets. Since Department of Defense is the biggest, they get the largest chunk of the SBIR program. And then there is NIH, Department of Energy, National Science Foundations, NASA, etc. And they all have different topics out there. They have different deadlines. They all have different proposal requirements. So it's it's not always fun. So this is again, this is why we built Scout, to really just help with that. So what does it take to submit a grant? Is you have to have registrations in place. You have to have a technical proposal. You have to build a commercialization strategy, and you have to build budget files, team information, letters of support, teaming agreements if you have a subcontractor. You have to create abstracts, etc. So all of those are deliverables, and we are getting better at Scout. We're integrating more. For now, we can companies do technical proposals in our platform commercialization strategy. It's all in our language models. We help with budget file justifications and team informations. We draft letters of support, but then the companies have to go to their contacts and get it signed. and we can help with the abstracts, project pitch, and specific aims if it's required. So if you do this, generally, it is an effort. It is always an effort. Even if you have 80% or 90%, covered in the platform, there's still this 10%. So it is always a few hours that you have to invest. There's generally, based on my experience and all the grant writers' experience that we have in Scout, typically if you do this, it takes about 80 to 220 hours of work, and it's a mix between 20 and 30 documents, with including all the forms and uploads. So this is why why so many companies also then fail, because with 20 to 30 documents, you just need to sign the wrong paper, or just need to not answer a question, stuff like this. So this is why success rates are very low. That doesn't mean you have a low success rate. If you're a good fit for this program and you do all of this, and you really just focus on what you're doing, and we all do have write 5 emails at the same time. So when you write a proposal, you can't do that if you write it yourself. And if you do all of that really thoroughly, then your success chances, they should really increase. Just the rest of this presentation is just samples. So for example, this is a fictitious company that we made up in our platform, obviously because we can't show IP and any data from other companies. So this is how proposals look like. This is how they should be. They are very dense, unfortunately, but that's the way to do it, because sometimes 15 pages, even though it sounds a lot, it's not a lot, especially when you have tables in there and graphics, etc. So that's a little bit it takes a little bit of a time to do that. And yeah, I think this is most of today's webinar. If you want to learn more about Scout, obviously we're very happy to help there. We have over 10,000 grant opportunities in our platform. You can create most of the applications completely in our platform. Sometimes you have to jump out to do a registration, but the idea is that that it really streamlines the entire process for you. The only thing you cannot do in our platform is the registration with the different entities. So if you submit a proposal, you have to do a SAM registration, etc. So you have to do this directly at the sam.gov website. And proposal submission is also always done at different portals where the agencies prefer you to use. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you're interested in the grant matching process, the way this works is we upload content that you have, and then our AI identifies all the different keywords in there. It matches you with opportunities in the platform. And once you see those opportunities, then you click on those and you can easily just create proposals in there. And all the templates. So for example, if you're being matched with a DoD topic, then all the templates behind there, if you click on a topic and that template opens up, it is already pre-built by us grant writers. So it guides you through all the different sections step by step. It builds based on raw content that you provide. You can type it in, or you can upload documents, and then you continue and edit it directly in the platform. And if you're interested, then there's a video on that too here. I will not play it now, but it's a 1-minute video on how our platform works and how you build. Here we say 15 pages in less than 30 minutes, but that means, of course, you have to have some good raw content. And we also guide our clients on how to provide that content, how to build a raw grant thesis to provide to the platform to really get most out of it. And what also means that even though it's a platform, it is very human. There's a lot of human-to-human interaction. And yeah, that is pretty much about us, about the SBIR program, and about does my startup qualify for the SBIR. So if you have any questions, then please let me know. Generally, the budget for both has increased to 4.5 billion from 3.8 last year. So that's a good sign. there's only 4 agencies that do STTRs right now. So most of the agencies are SBIR agencies. There is STTRs at Department of Defense, at National Science Foundation, at the NIH, and then there's one more. I need to look that up. There's a 4th agency that allows STTRs. We did have alignments on topics, unfortunately. So some, some really relevant clean tech, some clean tech topics were removed or were a little bit adapted. And then some, like that diversity is not a main focus of the administration right now. So they have removed some diversity related plus points. So in some applications in early years they would get a preferred status if it's for if I think if their company was a minority owned company. That is not the case with the grants right now. All right, thank you
I
everybody.